Well, this is going to be a heavy topic, but I promise it will be a good one. I put a lot of thought in this topic and I finally determined that under certain circumstances, people should have the right to suicide if they do choose to do so. Now before I fully go into this, I want to first talk about what suicide even is and why it can be harmful. Suicide is simply when someone intentionally kills himself, and it can of course be due to a variety of things. However, it is commonly done because of poor mental health the individual is suffering from. Their poor mental health can range anywhere from being sad that their cat died to a debilitating mental illness such as depression or schizophrenia that is dramatically affecting their everyday life. Suicide may seem like a necessary option to most of these individuals. However, in most cases where someone is not diagnosed with a mental illness, therapy alone can go in a long way to help them with their problems and inner thoughts, and in a lot of cases almost completely solve whatever problems they may have. And even whenever someone is mentally ill and may seem like they have no hope, medications and certain types of therapy can really help them remedy their situation and bring them back to a more stable, healthy mental state. And so I do believe that suicide is never an option for most of these people because they do have resources that can help them with mental problems, and so we should do our best to stop them from committing suicide, even through the means of sending them to a psychiatric hospital. And so if I believe that even mentally ill people should seek help and not given the right to suicide, then who does deserve that right? Well, I believe that if someone is suffering from a mental illness such as depression or bipolar, went through all the treatment necessary like cognitive behavior therapy and the others, and they have tried all the possible prescriptions and drugs that are meant to remedy their mental illness, then I believe it is reasonable for them to gain the right of suicide. Now, notice I'm saying right, because I don't believe that they should commit suicide themselves, and I believe that is a huge distinction. To clarify, let's look at a different situation. We all know that if someone invades someone's house and they think the invader might harm them, then they should have a right to protect themselves. Protecting themselves being shooting the invader despite shooting someone being extremely immoral under the vast majority of cases, and it being one of the worst things they can do to someone. With that in mind, you wouldn't also say that that very same person should shoot the person that invaded their home, because that person may have several valid reasons not to, such as not wanting to suffer PTSD if they survive, does not want to have to deal with a criminal case, or simply just has a strong religious or principled belief of not ever killing a person. Same with our original situation. Sure, I wouldn't ever say that they should kill themselves because let's say if there ever would be a miraculous new medicine in the future that could cure or remedy their mental illness, then them killing themselves would be a great missed opportunity. And I myself wouldn't feel right from that as well if that were to happen. Now people may say, what about the person's friends and family? Shouldn't they matter? And wouldn't there be some harm to them due to them being severely emotional from it? Well, sure, you could make that argument. However, I would argue that someone's mental pain and suffering has little to do with someone else. Sure, if the person commits suicide, others will suffer due to the loss. However, chances are is that they haven't truly dealt or experienced what the person who committed suicide has had to deal with for almost all of their lives. And not only that, but someone's decision of how they should deal with their lives when they're going through tremendous pain with little recourse should be their own decision to make. To fully understand this, we have to understand that this is already a common belief in some countries. Though it is a hot issue in America, in places such as Belgium, Canada, the Netherlands, Spain, and other Western countries, physician-assisted suicide is legal where a physician can euthanize you if you're close to death and for whatever reason wanted to get euthanized. You no longer tolerating the physical pain of the illness could be one of the reasons. And so if you look at it this way, what I am arguing for does not sound too far off. The only real difference is that one has to have a physical illness and not just a mental illness. However, I believe it should be extended with people with an incurable mental illness. And this may sound like a far-fetched belief, however, Western countries such as Belgium and Canada have already adopted this. Now someone may say, okay, sure, people in different countries can get assisted suicide under certain circumstances, but why do they even need physician-assisted suicide? I believe it should never be needed. And sure, that is a valid opinion to have. I mean again, assisted suicide is a very debated topic. However, I would say that there are multiple reasons to give a person a right to have physician-assisted suicide under certain circumstances. If someone has a debilitating illness, a lot of the times they can no longer deal with it because the pain is too much and it is the only way for them to relieve their suffering. It can also help their friends and family, as usually they are the only ones who can truly support them financially, and they gain a lot of pain watching their loved ones suffer. So sometimes the assisted suicide can put both the patient and the caregivers to rest. And this is why I believe it should be extended to people with an incurable mental illness. Of course, they should do their best to try to help their mental illness, but if they have no recourse, then physician-assisted suicide can make sense and it can be a great benefit to them if they do choose so. Now, a question eventually comes up with, well, what if someone fits your criteria and does not live in a country where assisted suicide is legal for people with psychiatric disorders such as in the United States? Now, to fully answer this, I believe it is helpful to look at a prime example such as Reckful.
Yeah, okay.
So tell me, what do you mean by depression? Let's start there.
Well, I've been diagnosed with bipolar type 2.
And
Reckful is a prime example because he was a person who, from his very own words, was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and suffered great torture from it. He talked about his long battle with depression and trying endless medicine with no prevail. Eventually, as a last resort, he went to Dr. K in hopes that he would help him.
Reckful, do you have a therapist?
I've gone to therapy a few times, but I never saw it as useful enough to keep going. When I was 6, my brother killed himself. He also had it.
How old was he?
He was 21. Very big age gap.
Okay.
And then because of that, when I've gone to get treated, they never give me SSRIs. I've never tried an SSRI. Because he's tried an SSRI and then that happened after.
Okay.
Prozac.
Okay.
And I've tried a couple of things. I was on a really high dose of lithium at one point.
How did that make you feel?
Very bland. Yeah, the same thing people always say, like kind of dead. Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, God, I've tried a bunch of other ones, but they're not super memorable. One of them gave me like some eye pain, so I had to stop taking it because I was really sensitive to light. Maybe you know which one I'm talking about.
Okay.
I don't know. I tried a bunch of different ones. This is like 14 years ago, most of it. So now I don't really remember.
Okay.
But
his medication ever been helpful?
And even though Dr. K did indeed temporarily help him relieve his mental illness, he eventually relapsed and went back into a great depression, finally killing himself by jumping out of his apartment. So, was Reckful right in committing suicide? Well, to be honest, I can't truly say whether or not he was right, as I don't truly know Reckful's situation other than what he and others have said about him, but I do believe he deserved the right to make the choice he made. Now before I continue, I just want to say that I may have gotten the event slightly wrong, and of course this is only a brief telling of what happened, so please forgive me. However, this is pretty much what led to the situation. Essentially, Reckful told other people that he was depressed again and wanted to kill himself. And so his friends tried to talk him out of it and informed social workers of this, which led social workers to try to come to his apartment to force him into a psychiatric hospital. Reckful already had a really horrible experience being put to a psychiatric hospital and did not want to go through that again.
Dude, when I was in the mental hospital, okay, so I tried to kill myself, chat, at one point, and I went to a mental hospital, right? And they charged me $900 a day, I think, while I was in there, and they wouldn't let me leave because they said that I need to stay or I might kill myself, right? So I can't get out of it. I'm just stuck.
Yeah, but what about if you're like this, if I have to pay another $900, it's actually gonna make it worse. Like, would they listen to you? That's
what?
so stupid.
No, just every day. Okay, so I was in there, and every day for like 10 minutes, a doctor would do a checkup on me and see if I'm suitable to leave. And he would talk to me, and he'd just be like, "How do you feel?" And I'd be like, "I feel a lot better. I'm not even thinking about killing myself. I just really want to get back to my life. I'm really excited to." Sometimes I would try to bullshit like that a little bit. Then I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna be completely honest. I feel pretty shitty, but I'm not gonna kill myself. Please let me leave, please. Like I'm fucking do anything to get the fuck out of here. I'll come back every fucking day. Just you could do a checkup on me, but I just need to get the fuck out of here, please." And they wouldn't let me leave, dude. It was so scary, and I was stuck. And other people I was talking to in there were like, "Yeah, I've been here for a year." I was like, "Oh,
What?
yes." So then,
Lying.
no, I'm telling you the truth. But then I got lucky. No,
So he was left with two options, jumping from his apartment or letting the social workers force him into a psychiatric hospital. And that is a really hard decision to make. What if Reck would jump out of his window and survive? Now I know what you all may be thinking, that is incredibly unlikely to happen, which is true, however it is still possible. There have been a report of someone surviving jumping from an airplane. So it is possible that Reckful could have survived and then been left in a situation where he's badly injured and now has to be put in a psychiatric hospital for an even longer time, essentially being in a worse off situation. So Reckful's situation is a hard one. And of course you could also talk about the system with putting people with suicidal thoughts alongside people who are going through deep terrifying psychosis who may have even hurt someone, and so forcing someone against their will to go into a hospital for days can do more harm than good. And all of that may be true, it might have been even true for Reckful. We know that Reckful did in fact not like it, and he was probably thinking, either I'm going to die or I'm going to have to suffer again for a significant amount of time. Obviously we can't truly know that that was what he was thinking. However, I believe him choosing to kill himself is a strong indicator that that's what he was thinking. And so if someone is left with those two options, who are us to say what he should have done? All we can say is that we have to respect whatever choice they make because we aren't in their position. Of course, a really good question you might be thinking is what I would have done. And to answer this, you have to take some things into consideration. First, from a lot of reports it did seem like Reckful had very little hope in curing his mental illness. Of course we have Reckful's very own words, but if you don't want to believe Reckful's statements, which it is understandable to be fair, let's take a listen to what Destiny had to say, someone who was somewhat close to Reckful.
I also think Reckful's a really interesting case to examine because he had a brother that was on SSRIs and he killed himself, which makes it really hard for you to get a prescription for any SSRI, sometimes impossible. And he'd already been committed once forcibly against his will. So this is like Reckful.
And he'd attempted multiple times, right? Or just once?
I don't know if he attempted more than once, but I know that he went to an institution against his will one time.
So that means there was probably a risk of another at least, because...
Yeah, but so, yeah, I mean, like, the idea that he could have just been recommended to another therapist, I think is pretty silly, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think even me and Melina said privately, I think this is a guy that's probably gonna kill himself pretty soon. Like, I think everybody kind of felt that way because his ups and downs were insane.
And so it does seem like this may have been true. And so with this consideration, if I've looked everywhere for every single medicine that could help me with my deliberating mental illness, and after having a really bad experience with being put in a psychiatric hospital, and no therapists have ever been able to help me, then I would jump as well. And I don't say this to say that Reckful was right, because we don't truly know his condition, and if nothing could truly indeed save him. Maybe he was just exaggerating, for example, and actually only tried a handful of medication. Or maybe the medication did help him, however he just did not like the medicine. We can't truly know. All we can do is guess and take his words into account. However, his words alone are not enough to make a prescription statement of what he should have done. I say this to say that we have to have great empathy for Reckful's situation, and who knows what we would have done if we were in his situation. I believe Reckful's case is a perfect example of if we had a way to let some people choose suicide through either a physician-assisted suicide or other better means, then Reckful would have died a more peaceful death. Or at least would have been a better outcome than forcing him into a psychiatric hospital. One could say that if he was put in a hospital, then he could have eventually reached a right stable mind and regret ever thinking of suicide. However, again, Reckful had a lifelong mental illness that affected him for most of his life, and that he also couldn't find a cure, meaning that eventually he would have become suicidal again due to the pain he is suffering. This is no different from a patient suffering an incurable illness who wants to receive suicide through a physician. There may be times where the patient gets brief levels of relief, however, for the most part, he is always going to suffer from his illness. Now, I personally believe that in extreme cases like Reckful, people should not be put in a psychiatric hospital more than once. What's the point of putting someone like Reckful in a psychiatric hospital more than once when he has already shown that it did not work for him? When they don't have any medical cure for their mental illness, they're always going to reach a point of suicidal idealization. And so putting someone like Reckful in a psychiatric hospital again, against his choice, does nothing but harm. But that's just my thoughts. I still think it is important to force most people in a psychiatric hospital if there is strong evidence that they will commit suicide, because for most people, being put in a psychiatric hospital does help them reassess and gives them the necessary resources to stay mentally healthy. Of course, again, psychiatric hospitals do have their own problems, and I do think we have a lot of work to do to make them better. However, this is a topic for another day. Now finally, even though I believe that I have made this very clearly, I just want to reiterate again that in most cases I don't really support suicide. I do truly believe that if someone is suffering from a mental illness, there is a good chance that there is some type of remedy for them. Some types of therapy combined with psychiatric drugs are strong ways to help someone cope through their mental illness. And if you're thinking about suicide, please seek help if you haven't already. I wonder what my next YouTube video will be. I'm thinking of making my next YouTube video on a certain individual.
Hi cuties. Guess what I just watched?
Thanks for watching my video. This may be my controversial video in a long time, but if you did enjoy it, please like and comment on my video. I do want to give a shout out to my Patreons, Eucharist and PBLC. It is people like you that help support my channel and keep me going to produce more and more interesting and thoughtful content like this. And if you want to be a member to my Patreon, click the link down in the description of this video. I got a lot of great perks. Also, if you want to help me even more, you can also donate to my PayPal as well. Lastly, it would help me if you leave a sub and hit the bell, as sometimes YouTube does not notify you whenever I post. Anyways, thanks for watching guys.